Hi, everyone. Welcome to another virtual studio visit from Talley Dunn Gallery. My name is Meredith Block. I'm one of the directors here. And this is my colleague, also co-director, Trini Martinez. We are so happy to be sitting here today with the one and only Sam Reveles. Sam, how are you doing? All the way from Ireland.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Good. We're so happy to have you with us today, albeit virtually, but we're so happy to be talking to you today. And currently, we've got a show of Sam's up right now at the gallery. The title is Solastalgia, and we are so thrilled to have this new work, new paintings, new works on paper from Sam and his studio. And we would love to just have a casual conversation. So without further ado, Sam, we're just going to get right into it.
Okay.
So I guess my first question would be, how is everything in Ireland right now?
Yeah, well, good. I don't know about everything, but yeah.
Yeah, things are good. So
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
us a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, we of course know your story because you're not from Ireland originally.
No.
But if you could give us maybe a little bit of background into when you first came to Ireland and kind of how you ended up there and your kind of journey to living there.
Yeah, well, I came as a tourist in 95. And I always wanted to come to Ireland. I was always, um, I read Joyce when I was very young in high school, and Dubliners made an impression on me, and I always wanted to come to Dublin and Ireland, but really Dublin. Anyway, I came as a tourist in 95, but then what it made me do is it made me want to come and spend more time here, not as a tourist, but just actually really kind of live here, sink into the landscape. So what I did is I applied for residency, an artist residency, which I got. I got two of them, in fact. So I came a few years later, and I was here for about 4 months, which was really amazing. And it was kind of at a downtime in my kind of artistic life and my personal life. I was at a real kind of low at that time, and I think it reactivated something. Like, it was a perfect thing for me to do because I was very isolated. I had my own house in the middle of nowhere, very small town, but beautiful. The landscape was very dramatic, right on the ocean. It was in Mayo, northwest Ireland. So it was really amazing, and it was in, like, everybody kept apologizing for the weather because it was like in the dead of winter. So the days are very short. It was cold. It was rainy, lashing rain. But I remember, I think it paralleled how I was feeling or something. I don't know. I loved it. It was a great kind of immersion into, the landscape, the elements, the place, everything. So.
And you were coming from El Paso, correct?
From El Paso, yeah.
So
So
talk about a juxtaposition of
yeah.
in landscape. I mean, you really went to like the opposite end of the spectrum almost.
It could not have been more opposite, Yeah, it was, just, I feel like I was picked up somewhere and then, like, dropped off somewhere, somewhere very foreign.
But it sounds like that was the perfect time and place to do it. And remind me again, was this 2010 or what year was
this? I think it was around, I'm terrible with years, I'm terrible with time, but yeah, I think, yeah.
Perfect. Great. Well,
Hey, Sam, so I've had the privilege of hanging your show and working with you and installing Solastalgia.
Yeah.
And Can you elaborate a little bit on the title?
You know, the title I came across from a book I was reading called Underland. It's about exploration it's about exploration, but in the earth, like cave exploration, or, you know, even like exploring areas that are storing low-level nuclear waste. So it's about exploring the earth, but the inner earth, the under earth. And the person that wrote it is Robert McFarland, who I think is really amazing. He's an environmentalist, a naturalist, and a great writer, I think. I've read a couple of his other books. This book was, the term solastalgia is mentioned in the book because it's talking about, at one point he's exploring Greenland and holes that are being made by the melting ice. And they're talking about basically the effects of global warming and how, especially in the Arctic, you can see it. You know, you don't have to you don't confront it periodically, or, you know, you confront it almost daily. You can see the effects of what's happening, you know, glaciers that are cutting off, you know, or a glacier that is much smaller than it used to be from his previous explorations. So it's so it makes me, I mean, I was already thinking, you know, thinking about the environment, thinking about landscape, which I work with, but also thinking about what we're doing to it, what's happening with it, and signs that you can really see. You can, you know, this isn't like something that might happen in the future or in the near future. It's like it's happening already. And I think that, you know, the term means it means feeling an existential or a psychic anxiety about the earth, about our universe, you know, about the changes. So yeah, so that's, you know, that's kind of where that comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so pertinent and current to what is going on in the world right now. I think we're all thinking about that. I think a lot of our artists are thinking about that. So I think it's a really thoughtful way to incorporate those kind of current events into your exhibition, honestly. And my next question for you would be, you know, when I first started working at the gallery and I saw a show of your work in 2010, it was so beautiful, bright, and colorful. I think it was the Juarez series of paintings.
Oh yeah.
Inspired by the brightly colored painted homes in Juarez, and just such bright, bold colors. And then your work really kind of changed and has evolved since, you know, moving from El Paso when you went to Ireland. I mean, like this beautiful piece behind us right here, and you can see the palette and of course the, you know, the concept and everything has changed a little bit. So could you talk a little bit about how, you know, going from that kind of type of your work into this newer body of work, can you talk a little bit about maybe how moving to Ireland has changed those things about and influenced you in your work?
Well, you know what, you mentioned the bright colors of the Juarez paintings, but the Juarez paintings, that's the irony, and that's what I found very kind of moving and tragic, is that even though, well, I did it at a time when the violence in Juarez was really bad. So it's almost like, to me, I've always thought, because you could see Juarez from El Paso, you could see the hills, and you could see, people living in very poor, in poverty. But then you can also see their houses are painted in like very bright colors. And I was always very moved because I always, one thing that I've thought is like color is almost the luxury of the poor people. They don't have much, but at least they have, they can express something in their pink house or their bright canary yellow house. And I thought, and it's also a way, like in Mexico, it's very common that a grocery store will be painted like a lime green with red letters, and to call attention, and to make it to make you want to come in.
Right.
But I always think that's also their survival. That's how they're making a living. That's how they're feeding themselves. Is that they depend on that. So even though they're colorful, there was one that I think there was one there were several that were called like mandalas for Juarez, mandalas, and they were meant as like kind of positive energy or meditations about this, and the irony of it, how tragic it is that these people are getting, the young women that were murdered. I think the murders continue. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot, there's a drug war going on, and there's a lot of violence that happens there.
Right.
And I think it was maybe like it was affected by that as much as just the visual color,
Right. Yeah. And that's so interesting, kind of, the way that your work and that color informs your work really clearly. I think it has to do a lot with where you are at the time. So going from El Paso to that environment and that landscape, and then coming to Ireland, your color palette really shifted, right?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't even like do that. It just happens. I'm just reacting, I know that when I go to El Paso, things get brighter because, well, my surroundings are different,
Right.
So they naturally, it's something that a lot of the times I can't control,
Next question I have is, do you have differences, like, because you have a lot of great drawings and we have great paintings of yours, do the way you approach drawing versus painting, are they the same or are they different? How do they vary?
Yeah. Well, there's drawings in the show that that are very new to me because since I was a student, I haven't drawn in pencil. And there's a lot of pencil drawings in there, although there's some color in there. So that's kind of a new thing for me. And I think with drawings, sometimes I'm a little further ahead of the paintings sometimes because they're just faster. They're a little faster. The paintings take me a lot longer. But that's not really true because in the paintings, they kind of move forward and back at the same time. Sometimes I leap way ahead of the drawings and then the drawings are catching up. I don't know. With drawings, you try things out that later might make it into the paintings or maybe not,
When you're working on, this new body of work, and are you kind of jumping to like a drawing and then back to a painting? Or are you working on them all kind of simultaneously, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I've tried working simultaneously on things and I can't. I
Yeah,
get so focused on one. So yeah, so what I do is usually like in the mornings, I'll maybe work on drawings, and then in the afternoon, then I'll shift to something else. But
mhm.
it's always one. It's always, yeah.
So Sam, before we take a look at your exhibition here at the gallery, tell me about your studio. Where do you paint? Where do you do all
Yeah.
great work?
Well, it's a small shed that used to house canoes for the schoolhouse. The house used to be a schoolhouse, and they apparently had sailing lessons and canoeing, and they stored them here. So it's not very big, um, and in fact, for making the painting, the one that's behind you, and for those paintings, the studio's almost that big as that painting. And in working on it, I had to walk outside just to get a sense, just to get to look at it, to get back from it, because it was so big. But I'll show you. I'll give you a sense of it. Turning around, that's the work wall there, and
That's awesome.
and then
Leads out outside. There you go.
Wow.
these are.
So,
So,
So
yeah,
the doors,
back
the
there.
doors open out to this. Yeah, it's kind of, that's the lake down there.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So green.
I'm sure it's so nice having that just incredible landscape
Oh,
right outside.
hey, go back out. Go back outside and show us the view of the inside from outside of your studio. That's a really nice, get a full sense of what your studio is really like. Yeah, look at that. That's awesome.
Wow, that's so
That's really
cool.
cool.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
awesome.
it's beautiful.
That's where the magic happens, right, Sam?
Oh my God, I hope.
What a great space. But yeah, I mean, it's packed for sure, but I feel like I'm still so amazed by the fact that you were able to paint these three huge paintings in that space.
Yeah, they're giant. They're bigger than
I
life.
know.
So speaking of, there are three, this, there, that matters that you painted. This is, I believe,
This is number
one. And we're going to
Yeah.
show images of 2 and 3 because they are bigger than life. Really fantastic.
Yes, and I want to ask you a little bit about kind of, I know that chronology is and kind of in order sometimes is really important to you. And I think that's really interesting when we're looking at these three paintings, because this one, as you all can probably see, and Ari can put up a photo, but it's really dense. Like this one is incredibly dense, super detailed, I would assume, but you can correct me. This one probably took you a really long time to paint because there is really not a lot of negative space in here. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
and when we kind of go through and see number two is very colorful as well, but you're kind of playing with a little bit more of that negative space. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how the positive versus negative space kind of affects the way you make your work?
Yeah. Well, the title, this, there, that matter. I don't know where I got that from, but I think what I was thinking about was about space, but space in like the macro sense, like the big sense, and space in like atomic space. And so like this, there, that to me meant like was a way of like distant, like how you see in terms of distance. It's like there's this here, and then there's that. Like it's kind of about placing yourself in relation to what you're looking at. And I'm really fascinated by like in looking how you see masses of whatever shrubs, a mountain, trees. But the closer you get to it, it breaks down into smaller elements, and it keeps breaking down. The closer you get to it, it breaks down into particles or substance. From a distance, it's one thing. You get closer, you start seeing things that you didn't see from afar. And I think that I wanted to have that sense in those large paintings where from a distance, it's like I hope people are looking at them from a distance, and then you get closer, it reveals other things. And which is kind of how we see, if you really are looking at something, it breaks down, and even to a subatomic level. I mean, the distance between, an inch or between atoms is infinite, really, as is, like from the landscape, the landscape.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how you make movement within these spaces that you seem to draw on the backside of these paintings, and you're filling in with color. But there's so much movement that happens with them. They're amazing, really beautiful.
Yeah, the lines are kind of a mapping. I start kind of mapping the space, and then I start kind of moving in it, and it starts to, like, the mapping lines start to qualify the space as space being not homogeneous and affected by mass, by gravity, but in space, in the universe, things like black holes affect things, other planet, it shifts. Even though it might look a certain way, there's forces that affect things. And I think when I start drawing the mapping lines, the underpainting, some of the lines really get concentrated. Some of the lines are not so together. And I like that. I like the space gets really concentrated in areas and then opens out in other areas.
So Sam, you mentioned mapping and drawing on canvases. You have these 4 really amazing drawings in pencil, and I had the opportunity when we were installing them. You were mentioning about how your pencil works. They just kind of lead you where they lead, Can you tell us a little bit about those drawings?
About I did one just as an experiment, because a lot of the mapping lines in the paintings I was doing with pencil. They're penciled in, or I use a colored pencil or just a regular pencil. And then I said, well, what if I did that? And then why don't I just stay with the pencil? Just start to work on the surface with the pencil. Once you get color out of there, it's a whole different thing, So the first one was kind of an experiment, and then I really liked it. So yeah, I mean, it was, I was talking about, like, initially the work that you mentioned, like, say the Juarez paintings, was a lot. It was like an accumulation of line. Like, there was a lot of brushwork, like a lot of line work that would accumulate. These paintings are more about what's happening between the lines, that space between the lines. And the pencil drawings, I think, explored that more, It was, it, I think it was just, I think it was addressing that negative space in a different way. I can't quite.
They're really effective because when you, like you said, when you take color out of it and you're really just working in like varying shades of graphite, you can so much to like explore that space. And we're talking about these larger drawings. They're so amazing. But I also love, we have this set of really beautiful smaller graphite drawings too, the Wicklow group. And I love those because I think you're really exploring the composition there, and you kind of evolve from like number 1 to number 7, and the way that you explore that space in different ways and different kind of phases is so interesting and beautiful. So I just want to commend you on that, because that series is one of my favorites in the show. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's almost also exploring, like, it's more about like light, because you have dark or, and light. Dark and light in terms of light, but also dark in terms of weight, weight, heavier and lighter. So I think that's how I was seeing those. You can do that, say, in a painting like what's behind you there as well, because different colors also, obviously different weights, different light, dark. But this really focused it, the light quality and the density,
Right. Well, it's so effective. I love the graphite drawings. They're so similar but different to your paintings, and I love that. It's so effective.
Yeah, they're just great drawings.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
The show has been really fantastic. An incredible body of work, Sam. And I have to commend you. This is really, really magical. These paintings are just really great.
yeah.
I've always been a big fan and still am. You're awesome.
Thanks.
I said it better. And honestly, Sam, every show that we have of your work evolves in such a different but beautiful way. And I mean, you're incredible. We love you. I mean, obviously.
Yes. Go Sam.
Yeah, Sam. Well, I'm happy to get a little
Embarrassing me.
working on right now behind you, and we cannot wait to see what comes next.
Exactly.
And your work is so exciting, and we love being on this journey with you.
Yeah, these are I think are going to be a little more confrontational. I think the scale is different. They're not so horizontal. They're more, they're a little more.
Getting into the square.
They're more. There's something kind of more confrontational about them. So, yeah.
Something to look forward to.
Yes. Super excited to see it.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for sitting down with us all the way from Ireland. It's so nice to be able to see you virtually, and I hope that your next trip to Dallas is not too far out into the future. And thank you for providing us with such beautiful work. Sam's show is up through July 10th at the gallery, and we just have enjoyed it so much. And we hope everyone at home watching has enjoyed a little peek into Sam's studio too. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.